Don't box yourself in.
Yeah, a lot of that like confidence comes from keeping those promises to yourself, even if they're very small.
And then when I found myself in that space and I was, to be honest, hating my life.
NLP is very interesting. It's a very, very deep subject. Hey guys, we're here. This is the Yet to Be Named podcast. We haven't come up with a name, so we're gonna roll with it at this point. We've done like 7, I think.
That's awesome.
So, Yet to Be Named podcast with Bailey Laster, and we're gonna cover a lot of ground on mentors and limiting beliefs and those kind of things. So, why don't you give us like 30-second intro and talk about kind of what you do, and we get into a lot, so don't need to go too long. So
We do. So I work with people and their money. I help people make, save, and prepare for the future. Whether it be you're an individual and or a family that's needing to get ahead financially, or just like set yourself up for the future, or if you're a business owner saying, hey, I've poured so much into my business and other people, but now it's time to start pouring into me or expanding my business. I'm also big with investors. I was an investor before I got into the sphere. When I was like back as an OT, I started investing in real estate. And so now I specialize being able to work with investors so that they can increase their liquidity. You can have a lot of houses, but what happens when all 5 of those houses need a new roof? You got to have liquidity. So I work with those as well. So that's a little bit about me.
I always start with this question for the guests that come on is what advice would you have for like younger you or people that are trying to like start out in kind of whatever their journey is? Like what's your biggest advice for them?
Don't box yourself in.
Okay.
I think oftentimes, I don't know, I mean, we got to chat a little bit, but I came from a pretty strict system where it was like, hey, you go to college and then post-college, you're going to do that job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found myself in that space and I was, to be honest, hating my life, it felt like uncomfortable to get out of that skin and be like, okay, what else is there out there? What will feed my passions and also tap into my skills? And I think when we don't box ourselves in, we're able to say, oh, okay, like you're able to find that avenue easier.
Yeah. Well, then when you're that young, like you don't know, you don't have any life experience of like what you actually want to do or where that is going to go. So I agree with that a lot. It's like whether it's high school or college or whatever, like.
Or post-college. I have a freaking master's and a degree I don't even use anymore.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
What's your master's in?
So I was an occupational therapist before I got into finance.
Okay.
So
yeah, so very different. Not even
super different.
Not even like, oh yeah, there was like kind of management and now I'm like, yeah,
no.
It's very different. So yeah, talk me through that then. Like what opened your eyes? What was it that made you decide that you want to change? You said that it was kind of a hard process of like stepping out of you said you felt like you're stepping out of your skin a little bit. Yeah, walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it was actually through being an occupational therapist that I really found my passion, because I realized I loved working with people. Mm-hmm. I loved that one-on-one, and I loved being able to help people get to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. But I switched gears when really it started first because I kept seeing the same thing happen over and over again. Mm-hmm. Middle-class Americans, all of us, have a health crisis that caused a financial crisis. So that health crisis, now they're in the hospital or needing to manage care. And so through that process, they were having to start liquidate things, liquidate retirement, liquidate assets, their homes. And I saw that happen for people. And through it, I was like, hey, I want to make sure that's not me. So I started talking to people. I became a client. I got the help I needed. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those, what do they call them? The people who, like, if we'd work together and you did my roof, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Like an advocate.
Andrew did so good. Yeah. I loved it. I learned so much. Man, it was so easy. I was that person.
Yeah.
And then the person who worked with me said, Bailey, have you ever considered this? And I was like, girl, no.
Yeah.
Not me. Like, I can't. And so again, the out of the skin was the limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. The belief that if I didn't have X, Y, or Z education, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that the person who helped me as a client and then helped me as a new agent was able to see that and call it out.
Yeah, see
and
that
then
potential.
Helped me grow. Exactly.
Yeah. So what drew you to doing like occupational therapy in the first place?
That's a journey. So when I was 19, I was a live-in nanny for a little boy who was deaf. Mm-hmm. And through working with him, obviously we did a lot of speech. And so I learned about the therapies in that process. And I was like, oh my gosh, I like the one that's about functionality and about improving people's life outcomes. And so that was OT.
Yeah.
So that got me started on that journey, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah. So similar too, it's like you still kind of wanted to help people and like just figuring out like where that passion kind of aligned. So when you were doing the occupational therapy, were you like under like a larger group, or how did you find your clients then? Or was it entrepreneurial at all? Was it going out and doing the financial planning? Was that something completely different and like new to you?
Totally different. As an OT, I worked in a hospital.
Okay.
So I worked what they would call acute care. So people post-stroke, heart attack, cancers. And then when I went into entrepreneurship, I really did kind of a mix of both at the same time. I was still doing my full-time job, and I started working within finance on a very part-time, sometime basis. And so that was all. Now I can look back and say with all honesty, yes, I can spit and hit a client. I know the reality of what people have in place and don't have in place. But at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to like talk to people and educate them. What? And again, those limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah. So when you were first getting into like the entrepreneur and the sales, you kind of said it of like that education, that kind of thing. What's like the biggest key for you as far as like in your eyes being successful in sales? And because it is
To be an entrepreneur is to be in sales, period. Yeah.
So what do you think the biggest key for you that helped you be successful, especially early on when you didn't have maybe the confidence of this is exactly how this process works from doing it time and time again?
Borrowing people's belief in me. So when I didn't have it, and when those, again, I talk a lot about limiting beliefs because I think that's all of our overcoming, but borrowing people's belief in me. So even if I didn't see it fully and didn't have the full scope, their belief allowed me to say, okay, well, I'll keep going. Like it's not going great right now, but I'll keep going. And thankfully it got me to a point where it was, and I was able to be like, oh my God, you said this, right? And mentors, coaches, whoever, my fiance, like knowing that I had a whole group of individuals who were like, oh my God, you've got this. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean you're worried about it? Like, you've got it. And I started believing it.
I love that because that's in my journey. You guys have heard it, is like a lot of it is finding the right coach and mentors and getting yourself into those groups of people that are, you're on level 1 or 2, you feel like, and they're on like level 8. It's like, all right, how do I get there? And like learning from their experience. And for me, a lot of it was more so like, now I can't think of it. Like imposter syndrome.
Facts.
So like, why am I here? And I'm in this room with other guys that own roofing companies that are like 40, 50 million. One of the guys that I made the best connection with, he owns like $150 million roofing company. I'm like, I vibe with this guy. Like we can have a great conversation about a bunch of different topics in roofing. It's like, but why am I worthy of being in the same room as him? I'm like, I've got 3 guys that work for me, and like that kind of thing.
There's no way, right? There's no way
that I should be in the same place. But so talk to me about how you found these like mentors or like those relationships, and like maybe there's an insight someone can take away about like how they can find, the person that's going to help them kind of overcome those limiting beliefs. Cause I believe that's a big thing too, for sure.
Oh yeah. And I think it's not just a one action, right? It's not just, oh, I did X and then that limiting belief is gone. It's a little bit at a time, because once we hit certain milestones, you're like, oh, but I'm not gonna be able to get here. So funny, I think life has a funny way of putting the right people in our lives for one reason or another, but sometimes we're not attentive to it. And so my fiance was actually the one to connect me with a person who ended up helping me out with my own personal finances. And she just did it in a way that was like, hey, we're in this city, we're in Miami. Let me connect you with some of my friends. Let's go have New Year's with them, right? And through that process, I'm a question asker, same as yourself. And so I'd be like, oh my God, like you're in this penthouse, it's really nice. Like, what do y'all do? You travel a lot. What allows for that? And so I just started asking questions. And they were like, oh, help people save money and prepare for the future. I was like, I think I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right. And she knew, my fiance knew the whole time. Right. But she knew it didn't need to be said by her at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I started saying, hey, maybe I should, she was like, oh yeah, you should definitely talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Get yourself helped out. I really believe she knew from the beginning that would be the sphere that I would end up going into in terms of career.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no firm grounding in that at all. I did not see myself as a money person. I failed so many math classes in college because I had no foundation to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those, like, be attentive to the people around you. If people are saying, hey, there's an opportunity, or are you keeping yourself open? If you really are, say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what ultimately allowed me to get into that space as a client, and then to have this be my full time.
Yeah. Very cool.
Long answer short.
Yeah. So, and then getting into that entrepreneur space, who is it that helped you the most? And like, because that's a big transition, going from working at a hospital to out on your own, explaining complex. I mean, to, most people, they don't understand how a lot of that stuff works. So who kind of helped you through that process?
I had a couple mentors to start. I think it's varying levels. So when I first started, it was my mentors, right? Mm-hmm. We understand difference between mentors and coaches. So my mentors didn't pay them. They were just there pouring into me. Mm-hmm. They were who I initially borrowed my belief from. And then most recently, as I've been scaling, it's been paying a coach and having someone, her background's as a NLP, a neuro-linguistic programmer.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. Do you know about that?
Yes. Yeah. I've done a handful of trainings on that. It's very interesting.
This stuff is like voodoo magic in a good way.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
It's great. If used for good.
Yeah, for sure. I probably shouldn't call it voodoo magic, but it's like, it's like brain magic, is what it feels like, even in the process. But most recently, it's been that. Like, I'm meditating, I'm working out consistently. My mindset, my internal cues, when I hear myself and my self-talk shift, I'm like, girl, we don't talk that way.
Yeah, being very aware of it. This all like resonates with me very much. Probably why my wife said that we should talk.
Yes.
But yeah, so I talk about it all the time. So we're going to break that down a few different ways.
Please.
But I always talk about this a lot, is like, you have your community, which is like the people that are around you, right? These are the people that you grew up with, or like just around, like they're great, good times, that kind of thing. You have like your peers. Those are the people that are on like a similar journey to you. And as entrepreneurs and those kind of things, like those people are usually very busy. You don't get as much time with them as you would like. Nope. And then, you have like mentors and coaches. And then as you continue to move up, a lot of times those coaches, they already have a community. They already have peers that they're spending their time with. So you have to pay usually to get in those rooms. I think as you level up, that's a big thing, that investing in yourself, I think, is where you get that exponential growth. So how did you find like your first coach, or how did you know like when it was time to like, all right, cool, the mentors have helped me a lot and I'm very grateful, and like you never lose those relationships, you're always learning. But then like, was it something you saw in yourself, or like something that you felt like you needed? Where did the coaching come into play?
Coaching came into play because of my mentors. So one of them, his name's Z, and he just kept saying, hey, you need to be paying for a coach. And there's something about, and I'd be like, well, I've got you, you're here. Mm-hmm. I'm here. I want to be here so I can like keep working with you. And he's like, yes, of course. But you need to be paying for a coach, because that shifts everything. And so it was, again, she's just a critical piece in my life, but my fiance was the one to say, hey, this year for Christmas. She was like, I've got you a gift. It was before Christmas, I think, because that's what I started with her, before Christmas. But she was like, I got you a gift, a package of coaching sessions with this lady. She's top notch, absolutely helped so much that I'm like shelling out money of my own pocket to be like, okay, we've already done those sessions. I still see the areas I'm looking to improve and grow in. And I guess I've pretty transparently talked about it. I'm a very neurospicy brain. So NLP has helped me work with my brain in ways that I never imagined possible. It's kind of like unlocked a few things.
Yeah. So getting into like your own brain, and you talked about it before, is like that self-talk and the limiting beliefs and stuff is right along with all that. So like unpacking a lot of that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, unpacking the self-talk, learning how to form really good, healthy habits. So in the summer, I bike to work. And so I'm getting in about 10 miles a day, roughly 8 to 10. In the winter is usually where I deal with some pretty maybe it's seasonal depression. I don't know. Just my mood is definitely lowered. And so working with my coach, I'm like, I know I need to move, but I just don't like the gym. You know, it's whatever. And I've been going to the gym.
Yeah.
Because of the ways that we've just kind of implemented. She's like, you just set your schedule, like you're in control of it. And then the different things that we've done in our sessions to get my mindset and the belief of what is best for me, and whatever that is, I can do it. I'm capable of it, rather than being like, oh, I can't focus on that. That's going to be too much. Or I've never been able to do it before. So how can I do it now? Make sense?
Yeah. So yeah, those conversations that you hit at the end are like why people get stuck in where they are. And a lot of that is just from outside things, from, society, or like the way we grew up with our parents or friends, family, whoever it is that's like around you, is like a lot of times that's tough to kind of break free from. Something too, so like this is a conversation that's come up a couple of different times. So now I'm kind of asking on all the podcasts, is like, as you continue to grow and move up, and like your fiance, she's in entrepreneurship as well, right?
Oh yeah, it's been for years.
Yeah. So talk about like that story, and like as you move up, I hear from a lot of people that like as you move up in the entrepreneurship, like it gets lonely and you start to like, it's a different mindset than kind of a lot of people. People love the safety and security and W-2 mindset, like where it is different. So kind of talk me through that, or it's probably nice because I'm the same way. Like my wife and I are both entrepreneurs, and like we love that stuff. We'll do like 8 hours on a Sunday. We'll be like, what's going to be awesome today is like, we're going to come up with this business plan, and we're going to like get into the nitty gritty of like all the stuff that like permits and like all this stuff, like come up with this plan. And like, that's a fun afternoon for us on like a Sunday afternoon. But
yeah, we should hang out. You guys vibe in the same way we do. So New Year's, we spent New Year's Day planning. That was literally all day, and we made it fun, and like had a really good time. But it was the best New Year's I've ever had. Period, hands down. But what I would say, so the lonely part. Yeah, they say it's lonely at the top. I think there's a process of, and I would say I'm nowhere near where I'm going to be, right? But I think there's a process of shedding, not in a bad way, but as you're shedding old skin and old beliefs and limited mindset, you also start to learn that like maybe the people in your life, not that they're meaning it in a bad way, but they're not the people who are going to journey with you as you go through year 5, year 10, year 15, 20 plus. I've found I'm very relational regardless. So I find that yes, people will go, but so many other people have come into my life that would never have been there. Like I say it very honestly, I have millionaires who are in my phone who are coaching me. People who I do life with, who I'll travel a distance to be with them. And that's never anything I would have ever been able to say 5+ years ago.
Yeah.
So yes and no, right? It's if you start to lose people, do you start to add in more?
I think so. I think you kind of phrase that exactly as like, you're going to go through change and transition, and we have to if we're going to grow, right? Like you can't stay the same and grow at the same, like the oxymorons. Two of my different coaches, they phrased it different ways. One, he called them like long time, short time friends. So like you've been friends with them for a long time, but you only hang out with them for a short period of time. And it's fun to hang out with them and like great, and you love seeing them and that kind of stuff, but he calls them long time, short time friends. And then the other coach, like a lot of his a lot of his coaching is about like that identity death, especially on the like early on of like, what am I getting rid of to become like what's not serving me anymore to grow, and like really being super conscious of those things and then moving forward from them. And like, it's not about being perfect. Like nobody's perfect. So like, you're always going to have, like you talked about before, those kind of thoughts that creep in, but where can I be aware of those and then do whatever it is that's like the minimum amount to like move in the correct direction. It's like, all right, how do I identify like this thought is in here? And then how do I like take one step the other direction? And then from there, the momentum and everything. So, very cool. Yeah. What else, like anything coming to mind for you as far as like things you want to share, advice you want to give? Cause you said the biggest thing for you was finding those people that believed in you and you're able to learn from kind of through the journey and everything like that. What other advice do you have for people that are, continuing to grow and wanting to kind of move up?
I think we can't discredit enough the fact that our mindset for certain things, like take money, for example. So our money mindset is developed, don't quote me on this, but before the age of 10. Mm-hmm. So if that mindset's developed at that point, if you're in your, I don't care, 20s, 30s, 40s, beyond, if you're ever in a space where you're like, why am I not, maybe you're in an okay space, but you haven't capped, or you're not where you want to be, or you're just like not barely getting by, you've got to recognize too, like what are some of those beliefs that I've been holding on to that are dictating where my capacity to even head forward, to move forward to the next thing. And so I talk a lot with that, whether it be because I'm building an agency, because obviously, that passive income's a big thing. Mm-hmm. But whether it be with new agents or my clients, we've got to be able to understand, money's not an easy thing for us to have a conversation about. But sometimes we need to go back before we go forward and not rest in the back, but acknowledge like, hey, mom and dad might have been dealing with things this way, but like, that's not me. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I want. And so you're doing something different. And so acknowledging that so you can move beyond and get to where you want to be.
Yeah. I think that that's something too, not just money, like it's kind of throughout your life. Like, and I think that goes back to the limiting beliefs and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know.
No, that's good. I love how you're able to like off the cuff do some of this. My mind was like, whoa.
What are we going to talk about?
What are we going to talk about?
But yeah, so kind of through that journey and everything, so let me ask you this. We talked about your coach and that kind of stuff. And like, I'm always fascinated by how people find like those people. Was it someone, because you mentioned that your fiance got the packages for you. So were you looking at a bunch of different ones, or how did you go through that process?
I'm going to be real honest with you. My mentor had kept saying, okay, get a coach, Bailey. And then I had my kind of limiting beliefs around it. Again, you'll find that it's all in my story. If anybody is like, oh, I just don't think I can X, Y, Z, I'm like, okay, yeah, same, but we're not going to believe that stuff.
Yeah.
But so she had met her through, there's an incredible Hispanic network here in Louisville. And so she had met her and was working with her personally, found out she was bilingual. And she was like, oh my gosh, my fiance was like, I've got to get this for Bailey. Mm-hmm. And so she got that. And it was that, again, it was just one of those right time, right place, right connections. She's so good about making sure I'm plugged in. And so I didn't really know what I was getting into at all. My parents came and visited me the first day I was going to see her, the NLP therapist. And my dad was the first one to be like, oh my gosh, you're doing NLP? Are you, like, his eyes lit up. He's like, I've read so many books about this. Mm-hmm. He's a nerd. And I was like, really? I haven't read any. Like, what is it? And so it kind of reinforced that, okay, let me go in with a really open perspective. And then the results have been, that's the pudding. So yeah, hopefully that answered that. It's just talking to people. I work outside of my home. I work in a similar co-working space. I do my life outside my home. I'm network because I'm not going to find whether my clients or other individuals to work with or just people that I can do business with. if I'm cooped up.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, with that, yeah, NLP is very interesting. It's a very, very deep subject and it's very fascinating how you can use that, with multiple different aspects. And like you said, is like for you, it seems like it's helped you a lot, not only just with the sales and like those conversations, but with that self-talk and everything like that. How did you get into, you mentioned meditating earlier. Is that something that you got into with a coach, or like, how did you get into that?
So I'm also a nerd, and neuroscience was one of the things I've always loved throughout, because you touch on it in OT school, and then I'd read information. And meditation has been one of those things that as I was learning to figure out how do I work with my brain, I mean, I think, some people are like, oh, yeah, there's 1,000 things going on in my brain. If you're neurospicy, there's 1,000 things going on with your brain. And so one of the things I kept reading was the benefits of meditation. And so I'd been dabbling in it and doing it every once in a while. And through NLP is when I became consistent. So now every day, every night before bed, I meditate. Mel Robbins talks about the amount of time to have effectiveness for meditation, and it's 12 minutes. Okay. And so I didn't start with 12 minutes because we don't ever start with where we're going to be, right? So I started with 5 minutes. And then once I was consistent with that, I was able to increase my time. And now I can sit down for 12 minutes without wanting to lose my skin and meditate, which is wild. I never thought that would be possible.
Yeah. I love that term. You've said it like 3 or 4 times, neurospicy.
Yeah.
It's very cool. I like that.
I think it's just across the board, right? Like we don't owe anybody our diagnoses or what it is, but I think it is helpful. I found with working with clients, agents, whoever, that like it's helpful to know like, hey, it's not just you. Like you're not the only one that maybe is dealing with that. And that isn't a limiting belief either, because we can accomplish all we want to accomplish with the right tools.
I think that's a big thing too for me, was like getting into the groups with other people that are either further along the line or at least in the same, like doing a similar type of thing, and realizing they're like, oh yeah, like they have these same problems. They're thinking the same things. And like the more that I talk to people that are on that entrepreneurial path and growing, they have the same kind of limiting belief comes up a lot, imposter syndrome, like those things that those people are dealing with. I think that the limiting belief too comes from a lot from like not giving ourselves credit for the things that we've accomplished. And like your mind works similar to mine, is like we're always like goal oriented and we're going towards this thing. And like if we always do that, then you're never really like, you're never where you want to be. And I think that's some of what makes us like successful, but also like it is a negative self-talk because you're never really getting to give yourself the credit for that. So.
That's one of the things I've been working on, is really acknowledging, like, after each thing, whether it be meditating or a client experience or when I'm training a new agent, that every time nobody else needs to see it, but I'm like, okay, awesome, we did it. And whether it's I mark it in my planner so I can see how consistent I've been with that thing, or it's just that moment of like, hey, yo, and that increases our endorphins. And that also is a reaffirming thing, because if we're always looking for that next thing and we never take a second to say, hey, but this was good, we don't understand what we've done it well at, and also maybe what we need to improve at, because we're always thinking about the improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that like confidence comes from keeping those promises to yourself, even if they're very small. It's like, oh, I'm going to get up at this time. Like you get up at that time, you've given yourself that check mark and you're like, I've done it. And then it's like meditating or going to the gym or whatever it is, like, what can I do that like it gives me that check mark to like prove to myself that I can do things. And then that just compounds to the larger things in our life when we're talking about bigger goals and that kind of stuff. And that. So I had something that I forgot.
It's almost like you need like a little notepad.
I know, I do.
Like that's what I'd be doing. I'd be like over here, like, okay, don't forget this keyword.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as like stacking those wins and those kind of things, what you mentioned that you have like the little journal checkbook and that kind of thing that you do, is like, what else are you doing to kind of make sure that you give yourself those credits?
I track my progress. For a while, I didn't know my numbers. So I didn't know where I was at versus what my goal was for where I wanted to be. So that's been a big one, is to track whatever it is. The other one has been be accountable, right? So thankfully, I'm building a team, but I'm also in a team. So I have individuals who are far above where I am right now, but where I will be. And so my accountability to them has been big. And then I also have individuals who are accountable to me. So I try to model the same behavior that I'd expect from somebody new. As I let my people know where I'm at, what I've done, where my goals are, and how I'm tracking with those. And it's just allowed, sometimes I think what happens is people get into entrepreneurship and you're like, I'm alone in this boat. Well, you're alone in the boat because maybe you chose to be alone in the boat. Like there are, just like you said, other people who are far above where you're at, other people who are your sidelines, who are similar to where you're at. And we can be accountable to both and when you are, you will be successful because you'll have people who are like, yeah, you did great at that. What do you need help with? What can I do for you? And they don't, it can be anybody, right? But you just got to choose wisely.
Yeah. I think too, with that too, is like not being afraid to ask for help. I think that's something that catches a lot of people out is like, oh, this person's so busy, they don't have time for me. But like you said, you have people that are far more successful than you that are more than willing with their time. And that's a lot of times how they get there. Is like Dave Meltzer is big on that. He's like, if I'm going to go from like peak 8 to peak 9, like in order to do so, I should grab someone from peak 6 and pull them up to peak 7. And like a lot of people are willing to do that. And then, so yeah, it's a big thing.
It's true. Because I think I have found that the individuals, I think there's a lot in the media right now, but I found that the individuals that are very successful, like I have a couple in my life who they're making this last year, they made over 1.5 million, right? Mm-hmm. So they're doing really well. They are the most whatever that word is, like they're the most giving of not only time, but also their resources. And they do it in such a way because they weren't always here. They were way here, super down low. And it's that giver's gain, right? Mm-hmm. We support others, and through that, we also get supported. And I think it's just being willing to be honest with yourself and be coachable. Like if you're coachable, people will work with you. Mm-hmm. I believe that. Sometimes it's not the first ask. Sometimes I've been like, hey, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And make their life easier in one little thing. And then people are like, yeah, Bailey, I'd love to sit down with you. An hour? Sure, that's fine. But it's being willing to give whatever it is, even if it's like, go get them a drink, right? Yep. It's so simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being free with your time, making it easy for them. And then, that coachability is a big thing for sure. Where are you educating yourself, or like where are you finding more? Is it, you mentioned Mel Robbins, so I assume there's some podcasts in there, books, or like, conferences, or where is it that you go to, educate yourself?
All of the above. So this year I've had a very classic neurospicy way. I've finished about half of a lot of books, but this year I said, we're going to pick 12 books. I'm going to finish them all, and I'm going to hold myself accountable by putting a prize at the end. So I started a small book club. We'll meet once a month at kind of the end of the book. And I've just kind of made it open to like, hey, if you want to, go ahead and read this with us, and then we'll meet. And that's been helping me track along with my first book is Mindset by Carol something or another. It's a big one, right? She talks about that growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So doing those little things. I go to several conferences a year, and I travel to be with my mentors for other times so I can get that intimate one-on-one coaching. I'll do it all. I listen to Mel. Mel's always like teaching me something. Right before I got consistent with meditation, her podcast on meditation came up. And then I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're going to do this. And that same day was the first day I like sat down and did like a full, it was like 15 minutes of meditation. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's wild. That was with my coach though too. Yeah. So
it's funny how like you talked about this at the very beginning, is like being open to those opportunities. Mm-hmm. I know that I'm big on like, I don't know if it's necessarily manifestation, but like visualization and like where you want to go. I think just, and I think you kind of were hinting on is like makes you aware of the opportunities. Cause I think we walk through life with like blinders so often that like, if you're not aware and you're not like thinking about where you want to go, I think that we walk by the opportunities that could take us on that path.
We're used to the status quo. So I can speak very honestly when I say I, got into therapy and there were several years I was like, this is it. This is all I'm going to be doing. And then once it started to become something that didn't spark the joy anymore, I think that dissatisfaction is what started to like cause a crink in my system, which made me say, okay, what else is there out there? What else could I be doing? And it just so happened that everything else was a ricochet from there. Becoming a client, deciding I could do this, even though I wasn't sure how I'd do this, and then just kept going from there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I sometimes it's hard to say, but like sometimes you shouldn't. The biggest thing isn't other people who are talking to us. It's our brain. It's what's in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been programmed to think a very specific way. And you've got to work on reprogramming or be willing to say, I don't know, let's see.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. And then, so we got back from Iceland like a month and a half ago. We went and Erwin McManus came with us, and he's a best-selling author and that kind of stuff, but he does training on frequencies and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And we were talking about like how far people could see in the future. And he's like, 70% of people can't plan past like a week.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, the other 25%, or then 25% is like a month, maybe they can plan. And then there's like very few people that can like think it beyond that month, 6 months, year kind of time frame. But to me, I think that a lot of that is a muscle of like, the more the time that I spend in whether it's meditation or visualization or whatever it is, where you're thinking about where you want to go and those goals, I think that you can start to develop like, okay, this is what this actually looks like. And it's not necessarily like, oh yeah, I did it once and like, it's perfect. And this is exactly what my vision is for the rest of my life. Like, it's always going to change. But yeah, because you mentioned like goals and that kind of stuff. It's like, what's your strategy around like goals and figuring out like where you want to be and deciphering the noise, like how many is too many goals, or like, I don't know, how many goals are you working on at this point?
Okay. Can I like tap into something real quick and then answer that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So one of my dear friends and mentors says all the time, she says, people always overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5. I know that's a well-known thing, but that speaks, I think about that frequently because right? And if you're not tracking it too, you don't even know what you've done. That's the other reality.
Especially once you get past a year. Like you can kind of remember back like a year ago and be like, oh yeah, and
sometimes.
Feel that kind of stuff. It's still hard. But then, yeah, you go back 5 years and you're like, I wasn't even the same person. Like
drastically different. So different. I am working on actually very few goals. Very, very few goals. It's honestly about 2, but the way we kind of did our New Year's planning was to be able to say, what's the big heavy hitters? And then what are the things that will actually help us to get there? So what are the actions or what are the routines? And so some of that as my meditation and working out, those are big for my mental health and my personal growth there. But that is directly linked to my business and how I do in my business. So if I'm not keeping up with these structures, the things that I need, then I'm never going to reach my ultimate goals for work and how many clients I help and how big my team grows in this 2026 and beyond. So yeah, very few. I think we don't have the capacity to juggle many things. And whatever you focus your attention on, it grows. And so I'm focusing my attention very narrowly.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Like very few goals, very specific goals. And then I spend a lot of time in like what those goals are going to create. And like, all right, if I'm able to hit this goal, then this is what this means and what it looks like. How do you figure out, what's your process for figuring out how, like what, because you're basically like stacking these habits into what the goal is. How do you decide which habits are going to be like the most impactful?
Knowing myself. So I looked back at this summer. We moved into an area that was super bikeable. And it just so happens that where I also work from is a bikeable distance. And so I looked back at this summer and I was like, I was super on it. I was showing up consistently on a consistent time to work. And I would like, when I bike in, everybody's like, you look so happy. I freaking am. Like, I'm pumped. It would be like 70, 80 degrees outside. And I'd be like, I'm doing it. In the 90s, we didn't do as well. But I just started looking and really giving credit to like, that helped. And so then I knew for the winter, there had to be something that would allow me to move, but it had to be indoors because it's cold as heck. So that was an easy one to integrate in. Meditation, it's because, I think we're all distracted. I think our phones have required that we're all a little bit spicy because now we can't attend to things for very long. There's going to be people who are going to scroll past this from 2.5 seconds because it didn't immediately capture their attention. And that was, I'm not letting this world and this system dictate where I go. So therefore you have to be opposite of that.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the reasons for why I chose the different things I did.
Yeah, makes sense. And having that reflection is big too, is like being honest with yourself of like, oh, this is where I do need help. This is where I am doing well, is like, how do I mix those things together? And sometimes it's better to double down on the things you do really well. And then, not necessarily ignore, but like work on the things. But a lot of times it's the things you do really well is what's going to make you the most successful. So like not being afraid to lean into those things.
Facts. And when you're an entrepreneur, you get to, right? Like nobody else is, that's the good and bad part. Nobody else is going to tell you like, oh, you have to X, Y, or Z. You might have mentors and coaches who will be like, hey, this is going to help you get where you want to go. You can choose to listen to that or not. But it ultimately, I think it all comes down to why. Like, why are you doing the work that you're doing? Why is this important to you? Is it deep enough that it hits that trigger? They'll say like your why will make you cry. And if that's big enough, does it get you up in the morning and going? And if you don't have that yet, work on that.
Yeah. One of my first coaches, that was it's got to be his favorite thing to do, is like, you get like goal planning or anything like that. He's like, he does like the 7 layers of why, and he just keeps asking you why. You're like, oh yeah, I want to do this and this. And he's like, why? And then he's like, why? And then he's why again. Then now you're like, well, like, I don't know, because I want to. And then you're like, or I want to do it for this, or I want to do it for that. Like whatever it is, like just keep uncovering those layers so that you can figure out like, what is it that you're actually trying to accomplish with that goal? Because a lot of times it's so surface level for people, and that's why they burn out, is like, they just want to make a certain amount of money, or they want to buy the thing, or like, I don't know. I drive a car. My truck has 270,000 miles on it. I'm like, I still can't get myself to pay $60,000 or $70,000 for a new one. I'm like, it looks exactly the same as my truck. It's got like a bigger touchscreen, but I'm like, I just can't do it. So
it doesn't matter to you, right?
No.
And so why would you? You wouldn't, because for you, there's something else that $60K is going to do so much more, whether it be personally, whether it be for your business, or whether it be for something else that you really believe in.
It's travel for sure.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
But yeah, so yeah.
Cool.
Anything else? We covered a lot of ground. So
I know. I'm proud of us. And look at you. You like came up with a question so smoothly. I think the thing that I'd leave for people is you borrow somebody else's belief in you ultimately, but you have to start being able to dig in and build your own belief in yourself. Like, don't stop, like, get away from social media, run. Like, there's something about it that Brandon Burchard, if you're familiar with him, he talks about, like, you're either using social media or it's using you. And that shifted it. Like, I was like, okay, sure. Do I have moments where I scroll? Heck yeah, we all do. But what's more? Am I creating something or am I just using this app that's there to buy my attention and ultimately monetize me? So I just say, like, start buying into yourself.